Hi, I am Umar Sheikh and welcome back to the YouTube channel of Australia Immigration Matters. In today's video, I am going to share with you the key differences between subclass 189, 190 and 491 which are part of General Skilled Migration Program. We often get this question on our social media platforms that what are the differences between these three visa subclasses. So we thought of sharing this video for you to understand the difference well. So let's get started. So we will be comparing these three visa subclasses 189, 190 and 491. So let's first understand the key features of each of these visa subclass. So when we talk about subclass 189 visa, the key features include that you do not need any sponsorship for this visa's selection. Now this subclass works on invitation-based application model. Points-based system is used to determine eligibility of the applicants. You have independent choice of occupation from any of the skilled occupation list of Department of Home Affairs. You have 100% access to Medicare, which is Australia's public healthcare system, and you have full work and study rights in Australia. So these are the key features of 189 visa holders. Now let's talk about the subclass 190 visa. The key features include that you require state or territory's nomination for this visa's eligibility. This visa also works on invitation-based application model. Again, points-based system is definitely used to determine eligibility. However, the state's own preference and criteria also works in addition to the points-based system. Now, your occupation must be from the relevant state's skilled occupation list. So if your occupation is not included in the state's skilled occupation list, you are not eligible for that state. You have 100% access to Medicare, same as 189. You have full work and study rights in Australia, same as 189 because this is also a PR visa. And you have obligation to live in the nominating state and to work in that state for a specified period as per the state's conditions. Typically, it is 2 years. Now, this is a moral obligation. Now, let's talk about the next one, which is subclass 491 visa. Now, key features of 491 visa include, again, you require state's nomination or you require family's nomination or sponsorship. So when we talk about the family sponsorship, this is a special case of 491 stream, which is called family sponsorship stream, in which an eligible relative, if he or she is living in a regional area of Australia, can sponsor you in case if your occupation is part of MLTSSL list. Whereas in the case of state sponsorship, it works simply on the base of EOI submission on the base of skilled occupation list of that state or region. Again, this visa subclass also works on the invitation-based application process. Points-based system is definitely used to determine the eligibility, baseline eligibility, but regions on criteria and selection parameters and preferences work in while they are selecting the EOIs. Occupation must be on the relevant region skilled occupation list. As I mentioned earlier, you have access to Medicare for sure. You have full work and study rights in Australia. However, there is a caveat which we will consider, which we will discuss in the next slide. You have obligation to live and work in a designated regional area of Australia. You can be living in any of the designated regional area of Australia as if you are a 491 visa holder. Again, this is a moral plus legal obligation. Now let's summarize the comparison with key features for these three visa subclasses. So number one, 189 is a skilled independent visa, 190 is a skilled nominated visa. In that case, a state must nominate you, and 491 is a skilled work regional visa. In that case, the nomination comes either from state or an eligible relative. Now 189 and 190 both are direct PR pathways, whereas 491 is an indirect PR pathway. So when I say indirect, it means that you have to fulfill the visa conditions of 491 for 3 financial years and submit ATO statements or tax returns for 3 financial years before applying for a 191 PR pathway. And ultimately, after spending 4 financial years or 4 years, you also become eligible for the citizenship. That's why it's called indirect PR pathway. Now, when we talk about the validity, 189 and 190 are indefinite time period visas, whereas 491 is granted for 5 years, and out of those 5 years, you have to fulfill the visa conditions and complete your ATO statements 3 years in order to apply for the 191 PR application. Now, when we talk about the eligible occupations, for 189, your occupation must be listed in MLTSSL list, whereas for 190, your occupation can be from either MLTSSL or STSOL list. When we talk about 491, your occupation can be from any of the three um, occupations list, that is MLTSSL, STSOL, or SROL. But there is one important thing for you to understand is that in the case of 190 and 491, the state's own skilled occupation list, the short listed list of occupation, also need to be followed. It can happen that a few states like Victoria, they allow all of the MLTSSL or STSOL lists to be considered for the occupational's eligibility for their ROI submission, whereas some states have their own specific skilled occupation list which need to be followed. Now, let's talk about the sponsorship. For 189, you do not need any sponsorship. For 190, state must nominate you, whereas for 491, you need sponsorship from either the state's region or an eligible relative or a family member can sponsor you for a 491 visa subclass. In these cases, for 190, for state nomination, you get 5 points as part of your EOI submission, whereas for 491, you get 15 points as part of your state or eligible relative sponsorship in your EOI. Now let's talk about the system. 189 works on purely based on the points tested system or points based system, whereas 190 states preferences and criteria also works. Whereas for 491, the regional criteria plays its role. Now it's important to understand that although the points based system is being used for the EOI based skill select system, for also for 190 and 491, but the state's own preferences and criteria is getting more important these days. Some states are preferring higher work experience, relevant work experience, higher English language proficiency, and these conditions are playing their role in order to be eligible, in order to be selected by any of the states. This is important to understand. Now let's talk about the obligation. So 189, you do not have any obligation to live. You can live anywhere in Australia, in any state or in any territory. Whereas when we talk about 190, you have a moral obligation to live for 2 years in that specific nominating state. For 491, you have to live and work for 3 years in designated regional areas of Australia. It can be any regional area of Australia. This is a moral and obligation, legal obligation. Now let's talk about the Medicare. So Medicare is available to all the visa holders. That is 189, 190, 491 visa holders. They have got the Medicare access, which is Australia's public healthcare system. When we talk about the Centrelink, which is the Australia's government support, because Australia's government support fund is available for the child care subsidy, and for in case if you are unemployed or employed under a specific threshold, then you get a financial support from Australia. Now this is available for 189 and 190 visa holders, where it is not available for 491 visa holder because it is a provisional visa, not a permanent residency visa. Lastly, when we talk about the rights, you have definitely full work and study rights in Australia across these three visa subclasses. However, if you are a 491 visa holder and you want to study in Australia, you will be considered as an international student, and you will be charged the fees of international student by the educational institutions. Whereas for 189 and 190, which are PR visas, you will be charged as domestic student as compared to 491. Now there is another important aspect where if you are a migrating family and you are thinking that what will be the cost of your child's education, the child's school education fees and tuition fees. So for that purpose, what we will do is we will be sharing a few links of each of the states educational policy and their fee structure, because the kids school, or from pre-primary, primary and secondary school, the state has the every each state has its own criteria and eligibility. and policy to charge the fees. In some states are free for the public schools. They are offering free public schools to all visa subclasses, whereas a few schools are subsidizing the fee for different visa subclasses. So what we will do is, as part of the description of this video, we will be sharing the each state's education policy for you to understand that what will be applied in your case where you are planning to migrate. So this is the summary of key differences between the general skilled migration program visa subclasses, which are 189, 190, and 491. I hope this has been a help for you. To conclude, I would say that the general skilled migration program covers 189, 190, and 491 visas, though each category has its own procedures and requirements. Some professions may qualify for the 1904 or 491 visas only, but not for the 189 visa. This can happen. So, what we advise is that even if you are not eligible for a direct PR pathway, that is 189 or 190 visas, you should still continue to consider the provisional 491 visa, because ultimately after a period of few years, like a few with few by few I mean 3 plus 1 year, you will be a citizen in Australia. It's a hardship period in the case of 191, we understand that, but still it's a progress towards the ultimate journey. So good luck for that. With that note, I would like to thank you on behalf of Australia Immigration Matters. Keep supporting us by following our social media platforms and stay tuned for more updates.